I absolutely do not know what your broken heart feels like. I don't know what your broken heart feels like. I have not been in your experience. I have not been in your relationship with you and your loved one. I literally cannot sit here and tell you that I understand what you're going through, that I get you. I get what you're going through because my nephew has died and I know what you feel like. I compare my loss to you. That is the biggest, most disrespectful thing that you can tell another griever. I know exactly how you feel. It is a lie, and you should never tell anyone that. On the same token, you can't discount my grief either. You can't make it like it's less. It's less than. This happens so many times in society, so many times in society. One of the things that I've noticed recently that's been happening with you and I've seen it more and more, is I we had a client tell me the other day, "You'll never understand what it's like to lose a child." And I'm here to tell you, you are right, and I thank God for me.
Yeah.
Thank God. I've never had to have that experience. I have no idea what it's like to lose a child. I don't. And I don't know what God has planned for me or the universe has planned for me, but I hope I never have to experience that. But I 100% know what a broken heart feels like. I know what grief feels like. And I know what my broken heart felt like when Austin died, when Donovan died. I know what it felt like when Daddy died. I know what it felt like to lose my best friend. I know what it felt like to lose my grandparents. I know what it felt like to lose my aunt. I know what my broken heart felt like. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because, and it goes back to some of the things that we've talked about over and over again, the hierarchy of where we want to put our grief, but really not understanding that a broken heart is a broken heart. It is nothing more than that.
It's sad because this part of grief is not well known and people don't talk about it a lot. Um, but there is definitely a system in place where parents who lose children think that their grief is on the top. But if you talk to a woman who's lost a husband, she thinks that her grief is on the top. You talk to a husband who's lost a wife. So it just depends on who you're speaking to on that day. It's because they think that their pain, because the pain is so unbearable, so overwhelming, so miserable, so dark. They think that that pain that they felt, no one else has felt that pain. And is that
Yeah.
true? A broken heart is a broken heart. It doesn't matter what has caused it. If you and I have met grievers who don't know what death loss is like, but have gone through a very traumatic divorce, and that event was the worst thing they had ever experienced to date. And when I'm talking to them, it's grief. It's the same grief. It's not, it doesn't matter what we who caused it or what the resource or what it stemmed from. The brokenness, the way I see them, the way they're talking to me, the way they're hunched over by the pain, and uh, the avoiding behaviors they engage in to numb the pain, that's all the same. So we
Exactly.
we really need to not it would be so insulting for me to say to that sad broken person, well, you haven't lost a child, so you don't know what it feels like. Right?
I never thought about it that way.
It's
I never
rude.
totally rude. Yeah, they're coming to you to talk about their grandmother, and you're like, "Well, you don't really know pain until you've child." I never thought about it from the other way.
But that's what people do.
I don't. I think that we do it to ourselves too, Erica, because when Austin died, I literally thought in my mind, okay, we talk about intellectual grief all the time. I thought only Erica and Lewis are going to grieve. It's going to be my job to support them. And I learned that from what I saw my parents do years earlier when our aunt passed away. I saw them support the grievers and never shed a tear and always be there and supporting them. I thought that was going to be my job as well. I was really recently talking to a griever, and she shared with me that her brother had passed away suddenly. and she would refuse. She did the exact same thing as me. So I know there's other grievers out there that are doing this. She said she wouldn't cry in front of her parents because she felt bad for them. She thought she wasn't, she used my exact words. I wasn't afforded the luxury of grieving because it wasn't my place, because I didn't lose a child. After all, he was just my brother. And so I didn't shouldn't grieve. And she held on to her grief for 12 years.
Mhm.
She never talked about it. She never shared about it. And here I am sharing this story about Austin, and she falls apart. She breaks apart right there. And I couldn't believe that I had never heard anybody say that. And it all comes down to us comparing our losses. Your heart feels what the heart feels. You and I have had a client recently who lost a nephew, and her parents are comparing the loss of her broken heart to her sister's heart and to theirs.
Mhm.
Telling her, "Hey, uh, you're not really feeling this. You know, you got to be. It was okay. You didn't get to be there. You don't understand what we're going through."
Yeah. Which that's the other thing that I think people don't understand. The whole entire family is grieving.
Yeah,
It's not just the parents or the
yeah,
grandparents, it's the
yeah,
aunts, it's the cousins. Remember how, I mean, we had so many broken little
the
people, medium-sized people, adults after Austin died, everyone, the neighbors, it affected everyone, the entire community. When
yeah,
Uvalde happened, when Parkland happened, it wasn't just the people who attended that school that were hurting. It was the entire community. Now, granted, there are degrees because you may have empathy, but you didn't know the people. So there's, I'm not saying everyone's grieving on the same level, but I'm just saying it affects communities. When Donovan died here in Texas, and we weren't from Texas, it affected my entire community.
yeah. A small town, small
Yeah.
town. There were more than 800 people at the funeral. The
Yeah.
small town. I'm going back to this is causing me to think about a few things. My grandson was 5 years old when Austin died. 2 weeks before Austin died, I had Austin for the weekend, and we were living in a rental house because we were building our house, and there was a jacuzzi in the back, and I had Austin for the weekend. Austin was 10, Aiden was 5. They played in that jacuzzi the entire weekend. Water everywhere, going up and down, blah blah blah. So here Aiden has this amazing experience with Austin, and 2 weeks later, Austin died.
Mhm.
And his 5-year-old little self, they didn't hang out a lot. They weren't around each other a lot. I mean, they were around each other a lot, but that memory right there was so
Yeah.
heavy. My girlfriend Sharon, her oldest son Brandon, Austin loves Star Wars.
Yeah.
Brandon loved Star Wars. Brandon was in his 20s. There wasn't a time that he and Austin didn't get together and they start quoting the Star Wars movie. We would just be together on the holidays. Like they were buddies. Here's
Yeah.
this Brandon that I adore, love, and he literally loves Austin. Like they would get together and talk about the movies, like they would relate, right? Austin dies, and the first time I see Brandon, he falls apart
Yeah.
because even though it was fleeting and just limited times here and there, he had a relationship with Austin. I can't go to him and tell him you're not really grieving because
No.
you didn't experience.
Yeah, you're not part of this family. You don't get to grieve. That's we don't get to dictate who gets to grieve and how they grieve.
And you know what? Sometimes it's weird and it also is intellectual when you go in our head and go, why is she so upset? The truth is, Erica, it's none of your damn business.
Yeah.
When Brandon walked up to me and he was totally broken and he gave me a hug and wanted to love up on me because Austin died, but I could see on his face the tears were coming down and he was feeling his own grief. It was none of my damn business what he was going through. That was his grief with Austin. It had nothing to do with me. That's the truth.
Mhm.
My friend was blown away. She was there. She cried. She supported. Her grief for Austin had nothing to do with me. And she was 3 times removed from the situation, right?
Right.
And the thing is that when another griever comes up and they're loving your child and they're feeling the grief, it doesn't really have anything to do with you. It's about their heart.
Right. And we should never minimize anybody's grieving experience.
No, no,
Never. It's
no.
so inappropriate, and it could be traumatizing because then you're making them feel bad for having a natural human emotion, which is sadness. And like I said, a lot of times I remember one of our uncles passed away and I cried a lot during the funeral. And my tears were, I was just staring at her father and looking at his face. And my heart was breaking for him because this is now another brother that he's lost. And his daughter, our cousin, I was, crying for her. She lost her dad. And another cousin came up to me after and she was like, kind of flippant, and was like, I didn't realize you guys were so close. And it made me feel bad because I was like, am I not supposed to cry? And like I said, the only thing I focused on during my tears was the look on our dad's face and how sad he was, but also trying to be strong because I could see it. You could see the emotion pouring through, but he wasn't letting any out. And my cousin, who was absolutely devastated that her dad had died. And when that comment came, I just felt like I didn't have the right to shed those tears that I shed. And we should never do that to anyone.
So your grief was being judged.
Completely.
You
Completely.
were being judged. On and that's kind of where we're going is that people are judging your grief. Um, there was a second um, thing that I wanted to say. Well, recently someone said to us, well, I want to ask Erica this question. And of course, I was like, what? What? And I feel like a lot of times I have to justify the grief that I've had for the boys because
Yeah.
of that. Well, because people are judging me, like, well, it was just your nephew, and it gets pushed aside. Well, you
Right.
have no idea. You have no idea. The second, you have no idea what I'm going through, and you have no idea what my heart's going through. So don't even try to get in there. Just love up on the person. That's it.
Right.
Now, on the same token, if it's your mailman who delivered mail to you for the past 6 months and then you have a loss, and every time you open the door, he is completely broken down and crying for Austin, chances are he is not really crying for Austin. He's really crying for something else, some other loss in his life. If it just doesn't even make sense, if it's so far fetched and so inappropriate, the truth is his heart can absolutely 100% be feeling the brokenness of Austin, but if you sit and talk with him for a minute, he probably lost his mother a year ago,
Mhm.
never grieved her properly, because you and I both know that losses will attach to each other. And instead of being one grief we're losing, it compounded into a full on hairball that we have to get out.
Yeah. Our mailman really did grieve Austin because he delivered our mail from the time Austin was 1 until he was 10. And he came to our Halloween parties. Like, our mailman really was part of our life. So he really did grieve.
Sorry, I'm sorry, sir. I made that up because I
I
didn't know that.
I was
I
like, I really did because he was part of our family.
Well, you know why though? Seriously, because Austin was probably out there talking Star Wars with him every day. Austin was giving him the lowdown on what was going on in the neighborhood because that's
Oh
how
yeah.
Austin was.
Oh yeah. Austin never met a stranger. He was Austin's friend. Everyone was Austin's friend.
It offends the griever sometimes when they feel like their grief is being judged. It offends me. It literally offends me because I feel judged. That's number one. The second thing is that it also causes the griever to go inward and be
Mhm.
quiet. Like that one woman shared with me that she shared that she didn't want to grieve in front of her parents and she felt she wasn't afforded that luxury. And it causes us to go inward. And when we go inward, that grief can stay there for years and decades because we just push it so far down. It's almost untouchable.
Yeah, because you don't feel, especially if someone has said something to you, you don't feel like it's right to bring it up. You feel wrong because you've been judged. And so you just keep holding it in, you won't let it out. And that becomes very problematic because then other grief experiences you have will just connect to that, and you'll have one huge ball of hurt versus the one thing that you needed to address in the beginning. And then you really can get yourself in trouble.
The other truth is that um, grief comes in layers, and it's sort of like what you touched just a minute ago. But grief comes in layers, so there's layers to our grief. When Austin died, I was not only grieving Austin. I would look at you and fall apart. My heart would break. Pain. I just couldn't even imagine what it was like. So I was grieving. I was grieving the pain for you, or like you said, I had empathy for you, right? I looked at Lewis, Donovan. Just the look at Donovan would break you apart. Just even if he wasn't crying, my heart was like, I can't even imagine what this baby is going through. And then me turning around to my daughter and trying to force her to be strong for you guys because you guys were grieving the loss of Austin and the mistakes that we make at that time. Friends, all grief is experienced at 100%. All grief is experienced at 100%. It doesn't matter who you are. Erica's mailman grieved
Yeah.
100% for Austin. He felt it 100%. I felt Austin's grief at 100%. Erica felt Austin's grief at 100%. And don't you dare judge that. Don't judge it. It's none of your damn business.
Yeah, it's not. And it's make another label here. It's grief bullying.
Yeah.
Don't be a grief bully.
Fully. A grief giver.
Yes, be a grief supporter, be a grief encourager. Just don't be mean. It makes it that much worse when you feel like your grief is being judged. But then you can't grieve your person properly.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. I hope this helped someone out there. And I hope it also helps me to just be like, okay, they don't know.
Mhm.
And and it's okay. You and I are both this way. If someone wants to interview you or interview me, we're okay with that because we have
Oh
different
yeah.
experience. If someone wants to ask you a question, we're okay with that. But when we get to the part where they get to the part where I'm just, I guess it's something I need to grieve. I need to grieve
GTS girl, GTS.
that. Okay. Don't grief bully. Don't judge someone else's grief. Just love the griever.
Yeah,
Just love them through it. That's the best advice.
completely.
All right, friends. Hope that helped.
Bye.
Bye.